At the end of last year, I had my 4th knee surgery, and to keep myself entertained while I was recovering, I brought the parts to make my first ever PC, as I usually enjoy dicking about when I'm bored. I have never made or owned a desktop computer before, so it was going to be something fun to try out. I thought it was time to build my own computer. It took, I would say, 2 months of research before I committed to buying these parts at what I thought were the best prices, or at least relatively best prices, and have all come from the same supplier because I didn't want it all coming from different places if possible. This led me to building my solid little machine here. It has a 9800X 3D, 32 gigabytes of RAM from They Who Shall Not Serve Consumers. I got this RAM for $256, which I thought was a bit of a steep price, but now that has gone up to $713. So I feel like I made an okay choice. And powering this baby's graphics was the 9070 XT. I know, an AMD card. What a pleb. But hear me out. It's only a little bit worse than the 5080, and it's $1,000 cheaper. I hope I was heard. I'll leave the specs below if you care. Now I'll be honest, no matter how many Linus Tech Tip videos I watched over those 2 months, actually building a computer was nerve-wracking as shit. It is expensive, and when making it you don't really want to break any of it. And I actually found an awesome video here, which I used to help me make the computer. It was simple, really awesome, love it. Couldn't have been able to do it without it. Now, on to my mistakes. The first one was trying to build a PC in the Australian summer. I was soaking through heat and anxiety. I had to change shirts at one point after I sweated through one. It's absolutely rank. The big mistake, though, was my choice of case. This case has really made my life more difficult, and slightly more interesting as well. I'm not blaming the case itself, it seems pretty good, but while reflecting inwards, I have realised that maybe getting a big one while building my first computer would have been far easier. It's not a small case, but it also isn't a big one. I believe it counts as a micro ATX case, and as my first build, it was tight in there. I did not have a lot of spare space. I also seemingly brought a smaller type of motherboard, which also caused a few issues when trying to put some certain CPU fans on. But, back to the case. My weapon of choice was the Antec CX200M RGB Elite Black Gaming Micro ATX case. Whew! For the sole reason that it was cheapy cheap, as it was Australian 65 buckaroos for a case and 5 fans, which I thought, that's a pretty good deal. Case and fans, 65 bucks? I still think that as well. I still think it's a good deal. The fans are not what I can, as based on what I can see, are the normal fans you might see in CPUs. Oh, not CPUs, in cases. Every video I saw while building them, they all were case fans that plug straight into the motherboard, and you could change the fan speeds and the BIOS and so on. Mine were all daisy changed and plugged straight into the power supply, which in turn means I cannot change the fan speed. So, they are always running at full tilt. So, that also means my computer, not the quietest bad boy alive. Not the loudest, but you can tell when you've turned it on. While inconvenient, that's not really a big problem. The big problem was that I couldn't keep the 2 fans on the bottom of the case installed as my GPU was too big. And if you look at the pretty picture here, you may notice that the front of the case is glass. So there's no front fans. At the time, this meant nothing to me, as I still had 3 fans, so I thought, no problem, she'll be right. She was not right. It turns out Those were the case's only intake fans. For those who don't know, intake fans are the fans that blow the cool air into the case, allowing the case to basically breathe and not be a part-time sauna. But I didn't really figure that out till later. So the first week of owning my brand new personally built computer was a warm experience. Nothing ever overheated, but I did spend a lot of time writing into Google, what is the average temperature of a CPU? Turned out about 40 to 50-ish degrees. I was idling at about 60. And under load it was getting to 80 degrees, so that baby was running hot. So much so, I was very scared and anxious, and decided to blame it all on my CPU cooler. My old CPU cooler, I hardly knew ye. My original CPU cooler was the Thermalite Burst Assassin 120 SE. From all reports, a good cooler, but because I'm not very good at this and didn't really know what I was doing, I brought the $29 version that had one tower, not two. So not as good as I probably needed it to be. And the fact that the case had no fresh air probably didn't help either. After freaking out for a while, I decided to do two things. Buy a new cooler and create my own front panel for my intake fans to go onto so my case could breathe a little. After some research, I ordered the Noctua NHD15 Elite Class Dual Tower CPU cooler. Whew! Which was not cheap, and honestly, not my first choice. It seemed that a water cooler from Arctic may have been the best play based on the reviews I watched. However, due to my keen technological sense, I deduced that water and electricity don't mix well, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So I decided I would just go with an air cooler, out of plain old fear. There was only one problem. Technically, the tower was 1mm too tall to fit into the case. But surely, that wouldn't be a problem. While that was on the way, I decided I needed to take charge and make radical change, and to create my own front panel. Most people with resources and intelligence and skill might 3D print something, like you might have seen online. There's a new Steam Machine little custom ones they were doing when they first announced that. Me, however, I am a man of little patience, cunning, and thought. So with the use of cardboard, sticky tape, and zippy ties, I was able to assemble my own custom front panel. With a sleek, black design from covering it in tape, you can hardly even tell it isn't a piece of cardboard anymore. And with some skillful arts and crafts skills, I was able to cut enough space and make some holes and attach the fans with some zippy ties. Is it perfect? No. Does it work? Yes. Is it kind of funny? Yeah. So, after adding electrical engineer to my CV, I booted her back up, and what do you know, she was way cooler. So, much so, I may not have even needed a new cooler, but when you consistently make poor decisions, you need to take a few losses along the way. I was, though, pretty happy with my new creation, and in the dark, or even when you're not right up next to it, you don't even notice it's a handcrafted front panel. I did plan to then put some stickers maybe on it, or something to hide the fact that it is a piece of cardboard, but I realized I don't own any stickers, and I don't think I've owned any stickers since I moved house as a 10-year-old. So that plan is currently on hold. Now, you might remember how I said the cooler was 1mm too tall. Turns out, it was kind of a problem, especially because of this small tight case. Putting this thing on was a bitch. Mainly because I definitely did not want to take the motherboard out of the case. And I had still no idea what I was doing and how to take my GPU out. So there was spaces at a premium. But I thrive under pressure. So I got the old one off, scraped off the thermal paste with some leftover cardboard, and got to work. Getting the tower on, not a problem. Easy peasy. Lemon squeeze. The fans, however, this was one of the top 10 hassles of my life. But through willpower and unending stupidity, it was all in place. The final thing I added was some dust mesh filters I brought off Amazon, like a couple for like 20 bucks. Pretty good. Came with the mesh and the magnets, easy to take on and off. All I did was blue tack some spare CPU mounting brackets on the top and below the fans, and ta-da! They would magnetize. And all of a sudden, I had some dust filters as well. While she ain't perfect, and she ain't too pretty, she is mine. And sometimes that's good enough.
Send in.
This one's pretty.
Not according to the book. If you go by the checklist, this one's perfect.
But I like how mine's a little off-center. It's got wabi-sabi.
You can't.
Hi there. If you have surprisingly watched this video, maybe think about following along and subscribing. I've recently quit my second job hobby that I used to do in my spare time, and honestly just doing this because I'm bored and don't want to spend the whole time that I'm at home playing Ultimate Team, and you know, that can drive you insane. So I'll probably post stuff here from time to time. If you watch this, you had fun, you want to see more, yeah, bye, and cheers.